Hello and welcome to episode 6. 6?
6?
Mad, isn't it?
Crazy.
I'm fine. A chat between myself, Damo, and good friend and believer that fish aren't wet, Mark.
Yes. Yeah, okay.
It just popped up in my head the other day.
Yeah.
That you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll come to it in a second because it sounds a bit random. It's a chat around the subjects of health, wealth, well-being, fitness, sport, conspiracy and anything else that we fancy. We're all work in progress and this podcast is no exception. In short, it's a poke at our perfectly imperfect lives, and if we can make just one person feel like they're not alone in all this madness, our work here is done. You okay?
I'm good. I'm great. How are you?
I'm alright. I slept well
Okay.
last night. I think probably the best I have in maybe 6 months.
Sleep's a big thing, isn't it?
I think your workout with me this week really really helped.
Because we actually used weights rather than just talk.
Yeah, we actually did some work. No,
Yeah.
but I think, because it normally kind of kicks in 2 days later.
Yeah. Actually, just as you said that,
Yeah.
just let me... this week, I think I go in... I think a lot of PTs go in cycles. One of the things that PTs won't tell you is that we all write programs for clients and we know what we're going to do. And you took a photograph of my chalk written.
I did. I should put that up. Yeah.
So it isn't just a random thing, and obviously it's personalised. However, there is a certain element of this week is all about X, Y, and Z. And last week was all about chatting with a lot of clients, and this week was just going back to heavy weights and saying, we've talked, we've reset, now we're going to go with heavy weights. And I was just going to read, I'm literally just finding this on my...
Do we need to fill in? Do you need some music?
No, yeah, Heist 2.
This will be good for you.
Go on then.
You might have to.
Okay, let me listen, yeah, go on.
That's a bit more you, isn't it?
It's a bit more techno.
Have you found it? Or I've got to play it again?
No, I found it. People can remain anonymous. Our WhatsApp group for this one is called the Terrific Threesome, which I guess you don't necessarily want to have on your phone. So, is anybody else's body in pain today? Is it just me? So I replied, I'm fine, which is humorous because obviously I've been working out. My legs are a bit sore, but anticipating them to worse tomorrow. Hate the day delay. Exactly the same thing that you point.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck, I'm trying to walk down the stairs. I can walk up, but I can't walk down. I'm anticipating tomorrow to be worse, so enjoy it while you can.
And I assume they did the same thing as me, the weighted squats.
Yeah. And then the second person got, oh my God, the muscles in my bums, like right above the thighs.
My
at the
bustles.
Back. My bustles, yeah. And so the first ones from the first person were at 2 p.m. This one is at 8:30. This is getting worse. I can barely move. Why did you do this to me? And it's like, it's PT heaven to get these feedback.
But there's a fatigue of the evening after I've done it.
Yeah.
And then the next day, it's just like an all-encompassing. Just your body just feels,
Yeah, and I think it's legs especially. I think big muscles, you can really hit them and give them a good working to. But I think there's that bit around, and this is for Gareth and anybody else out there who's doing stuff with PTs.
He's getting a big mention.
He is, yeah. There isn't a necessity to feel bad or achy or sore the day after. It isn't a reflection of the work you've done. So there's something called DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness. Some people get DOMS. Some people could be lifting for an hour massive weights and not get them. So this bit about no pain, no gain is absolute bollocks. If a PT works you, sometimes I will know that the workout you're going to suffer. Sometimes it won't, but it shouldn't be a measure of how hard you've worked. And I think some people think it is, as if I'm not aching the following day, did I work out?
Yeah, definitely not.
So.
We might kind of tie these in because we're going to be looking at emotions in work-life ballet, as well as hydration and drop and give me 20. But I was going to, when we talked about it in episode 1 about why we're calling it I'm Fine, about being asked how you are and how you respond. When we kind of say we're good or not, I think you kind of made a point this week about what does that actually look like? Don't you need to know what good looks like in order to say whether you're good or not, I guess?
I think one of the things, and this has been refined because I spoke to someone yesterday afternoon on this subject, and we were having a discussion on how I felt. And what I said to this person was that quite often the response will be determined by the timing of the question. So, give you an example. If you had asked me how I was this morning at 8 o'clock and how I am now, or if you'd asked me how my week had gone, my response would have been determined how I was at that moment in time. If you asked me now, my reflections on how I think my week has been would be more positive than they were at 8 o'clock. And nothing has intrinsically changed except my perception of that week has changed because of my current mood.
Okay. Yeah.
So the point I was saying, and I'm doing this with a couple of clients at the moment, is unless you know what the measure of a good week is, you're always going to struggle. So for people that have less confidence, a prime example, and I think this is a great example, a client was discussing with me, I haven't seen the client for about 3 or 4 weeks. She's had a couple of injuries that have kept her away, a couple of things around COVID and stuff. So we've had a little break. And when she trained with me, she sort of said, sort of need this as a bit of a reset. I realise certain things, I need a bit of motivation, need a bit of guidance, which is fine. This happens all the time. So we had the discussion and she said, the only exercise I'm getting is walking the dog. And I do between 5 and 10 kilometres a day.
Wow.
So if she'd come into the session and I'd say, tell me about your week, and she'd gone, it's brilliant because I've walked over 50 kilometres this week, I'd go, shit, fair play.
Yeah.
But in the position she was, in terms of the things that she saw as negative or needed fixing, that achievement was minimised.
Yeah.
Whereas if she'd been in an upbeat position and maybe before she'd come and seen me, she'd done a small workout at home and come and gone, could have been better, but I've worked 50k and I did some, do you know what I mean? So it was the way you sort of sell it, that was a real positive. But when we discussed it, it was almost, well, it was because I had to take the dog out. It wasn't because I was motivated to do 50 kilometres in the week.
Right.
And somehow for that person, that minimised the effect of the 50-kilometre walk. And it shouldn't, because your body doesn't care what your head's thinking. It's still 50k, whether you're doing it because you have to or because you're doing it because you want to. So I think that's a real key thing. It's like, so one of the things I've done on a few clients at the moment is we're having something, it's either 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, or for this particular client, 3, 2, 1. And 3, 2, 1 is 3 lots of one activity, which was a HIIT workout at home, 2 runs, and I think the 1 session with me, I can't remember, something like that. So when I meet that client, have you done 3, 2, 1? Yes, therefore it's been a good week. But she could have done all those, but if she hadn't been in a good place when I saw her, she might have gone, oh, it was all right. But now we have a measure of what a good week is. So going back to my running, what I do is I text my running partner with 5 targets for each race. And they're generally not to get injured in the warm-up, not to fall over in the race. They're not always these, but if I'm in a particularly fally mood. The third one would generally be a time, a sort of, I'd be happy if I get this time. The second one will be, in my heart of hearts, this is the time that would really make me happy. The first one's a bit of a... And the fifth one would be, this would be above all expectations. And quite often I'll hit the fourth one, which is, this would be a good time, and I'll be disappointed. And she'll hold the phone up and go, before the race, 13.3 was a good time. And now you've done 13.3 and you're going, I could have run faster. So I think that bit of actually deciding what good looks like means you can measure it.
Sure.
So that's just maybe something.
Setting the bar. Your own bar. Right.
And so maybe just with people's lists, just almost, putting it down in the diary or texting a friend or putting it in your notes. If this week I do X, Y, and Z,
that would be a good
it's a good week. Even if there's a lot of shit along the way. These are the things that would make me feel it was good.
I suppose just being a little more proactive about it rather than, not and seeing where you are. But you could have had something happen 2 minutes before you've seen someone that's ruined their week.
Yeah.
But actually, the perspective has gone on
Exactly.
that, hasn't it?
Perspective. Yeah.
Do you find that, we talk a lot, and I guess with your clients, they talk a lot. Everyone, we're not going to go into that, but do you feel there's, in the time you've been doing it, do you feel you're doing that more? Do you feel, because just with the pressures of life at the moment, but just, ongoing, there's always pressures, but especially this year and how difficult this year has been. And certainly there's a lot of, which we'll kind of come on to in a minute, there's a lot of content out there about dealing with emotions, talking about your emotions, even understanding your emotions, because that's kind of probably for me the most important thing. You can talk about stuff, but unless you actually know what you're feeling or can identify what they are, you can't even start. But
I mean,
just in terms of what you're finding now, a bit of a gauge, I think, in terms of what people are feeling. Do you feel, I think I would probably, is it fair to say that most of your clients are feeling something? Like everybody is.
There's been a massive upturn in terms, we discussed this I think the week before last, in terms of, I think it's around uncertainty. I think it's around, when we were talking about, you were talking last time on imposter syndrome, and you mentioned about someone from another agency that you looked up to. When I worked in probation, I used to have a manager, and I don't think I rated him, and I'd said to someone once, I want the person that manages me to be cleverer than me, smarter than me. I don't want to be. I want them to tell me what to do and point the way forward. And I think the point I was going to make is that if that person who is managing you, is looking after you, you don't have that sense of belief in, taking your point, just talking to them, you're thinking, actually, I could come up with better solutions. I think what's happening with my clients now, because of this uncertainty, is that if you're able to talk in a protected and safe environment, then there's some value to that. Talk for talk's sake probably isn't valuable. And the interesting thing, without going into more great detail, one of the things that I found is that I'm quite often saying to clients, it's okay that you didn't touch a weight today, because what we've discussed is far more beneficial than you burning a few calories and lifting a weight. And I think there's a big acceptance now that sometimes people are coming to a session to go, I need a reset, I need motivation, I need some clarity about what I can and can't do. And I think a personal training environment is good for that, because you have to have some element of degree of trust that the person you're speaking to is firstly going to hold every confidence. And I think this is why you and I are rarely referring to anyone by name. We're just sort of almost talking in. You'll hear some podcasts where they go, oh, so-and-so said this, so-and-so said that. And I think there's no need to give a name.
It's not relevant, is it? No.
So I think, in answer to your question, a lot more talking, a lot more communication in terms of making people feel that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones feeling this. And also sometimes clarifying one or two things. Like I said to you just recently around the latest announcements around COVID was, people's first thing was, oh my God, we're going through all this. And then you look at what happens and nothing has changed. Hardly anything has changed. The bit about the houses and the groups of 6, but nothing else really has.
No.
We're going to play football on a Monday night. You can go into a gym with 30 people. Nothing. But the whole feeling has been, oh shit, we're in another level now. It's gone up a level. But it hasn't really.
It's odd, isn't it? How I felt that and known for a while that, it didn't initially feel like it. You just read a headline, you think it's a lot worse. We go back into it feels like a full lockdown. I think I think we're also quite close to. Everything's just under the surface, isn't it? It's not going to take much just to bring all that anxiety back. It feels like we've just none of it's gone away. The uncertainty hasn't gone away. We've just parked it. But it's very present, isn't it? For everybody.
And it's interesting. I heard when Johnson. I'm not going to call him Boris. That's
why. Isn't it too familiar?
It worries me.
What, calling him Boris?
So name another British Prime Minister that has been known by their first name.
Oh yeah, I mean,
There's one.
Maggie.
Yeah. So
Is that your...
My point is, Cameron was Cameron.
Yeah,
Theresa May was May.
Amongst other words. Yeah.
Boris, firstly, because you could say it's... I don't mean it's a funny name, but it has a jokey element to it.
Yeah.
So what I think has happened is by the fact that we call him Boris, we, as in the general population, allow him to get away with stuff.
You think?
Yeah, because there's a familiarity around him. If you think what he's done...
But we didn't call Thatcher Maggie because I wouldn't say... I would argue for not for the same reasons. That was more of a kind of an endearing kind of nickname for someone who was hard as nails.
She was, but if you compare...
So it was more of a playful nickname.
It may be ironic with Thatcher.
Yeah.
But the point I'm making, everyone refers to him Boris, and there's some brilliant marking that's gone on.
Is that just a big... Is that a lack of respect, an open and, you know, but confident show of lack of respect for someone?
But I was down...
Because I wouldn't call it... If he turned up here, I wouldn't go, all right, Boris. I'd think I'd have a little bit more respect.
But he's referred to constantly by the media as Boris. It just strikes me as strange. You don't call Trump Donald. No one calls him Donald.
It was part of the brand then, you know.
So the brand has been created for us, and we've bought into it.
Yeah, but he's also helped create that.
Yeah, Boris the buffoon.
Yeah.
But we got a situation where I was at the tract, and there was someone there who's done some work for a Labour MP, and we were talking about politics, and he said, we're going to find it really hard to overturn 80-seat majority, whatever it is, the Conservatives. Mm-hmm. And I laughed, and he said, why are you laughing? And I'm saying, you've got someone who is every single thing they could have got wrong, they've got wrong. Mm. It's fucked up Brexit, fucked up COVID, got Cummins as your advisor, a whole number of other things that you've done wrong, and you're saying as the opposition party that you're going to struggle to beat this person. And now we're breaking international law and saying in the House of Commons we're breaking international law. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know, that's why he's called Boris, and that's why he's still in power. To me, it's just, I find it very strange. And I'm not doing this from a political standpoint. I just think it's strange that he's called Boris. Full stop. Okay. That's it.
How do I get this back onto mindfulness? Is what I'm trying to lead us to mindfulness. But I guess where I was going was asking you whether, I guess, your clients, friends, I guess, are finding the need to talk about things more. I don't necessarily want to get into men and women, because we've already kind of talked about imposter syndrome. Is that just everybody? You know, yeah. I don't think it's really about gender so much.
No.
But I think there's a need. I want to kind of talk a little bit about gender in a minute, to do with talking and being, I guess, open with your emotions, or even talking about your emotions.
Yeah,
you kind of touched on it already, but before I get to that, I wanted to talk to you about where do you think your kind of, as a PT, role is going? Is it you're going to find yourself doing less lifting and more talking, or is there I think where I was also going to go is that hour or 2 hours a week, whatever it is setting aside, which I found really important for me, is setting aside that time for me. Mm-hmm. Like football used to be on a Monday night. Yeah. That hour would be my only hour in the week where I was doing arguably something for me and my health and well-being. Mm-hmm. Didn't think about it too much at the time, but now retrospectively I go, that probably explains why I used to get wound up when it, running much of the ball, or it wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, because that was my time. Yeah. Now because doing this, I have more control over that and value that a lot more, and I am making time for myself. I don't think I've ever been good at mindfulness, but imagine it's a type of, I'm mindful of that. So I imagine I'm kind of sweeping that into mindfulness, but I'm very conscious now that I'm setting that time aside for myself. Yeah. Whether I turn up and we chat, or I turn up and we chat and we work out, or we just lift, or whatever it is. Obviously, what we do and the results of that are good, and they're a benefit, and they're not a bonus. Yeah. That's what I'm going there for. But I don't ever come away having just talked to you sometimes and gone, well, that wasn't worth it.
Yeah. I mean, I think if we were talking and it wasn't leading anywhere, then one or other of us would go, time to lift weights. I think...
Because I don't turn up knowing that, I don't want to let Mark down. There's an element of having a trainer, someone you work with. So if I was just going to set aside an hour or 2 hours of my own time just doing stuff on the back garden, I'm more likely to bin that off.
Yeah.
So there is an element of, I don't want to let you, you're expecting me, you're standing there, you're waiting for me, so I'm going to turn up. There's a little bit of that, but actually find it, no, I'm going to, I guess I'm taking that time for me, no matter what we do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it comes back to two things. One, just slight angle of what you said, or a slight tangent, is that I've long been an advocate that my role is to evoke consistency, not to motivate you. And I've had some discussions with PTs. Some agree, some disagree. Your motivation should be that you want to be healthy, that you want to live longer, that you don't want to be in pain.
Mm-hmm.
If you need someone to tell you all that, well, you shouldn't. You're an intelligent person.
Yeah.
What you need in terms of support with, quite often, will be the consistency to achieve that. So the turning up is the consistency. You've turned up, and I don't have to motivate you. It doesn't matter whether you don't have to enjoy the session. You have to get something from it, but you could be lifting and hating it, but you're still lifting and you're still moving. And I think for me, a client said to me last year, this is my most important hour of the week. And that was like a bombshell to me, in terms of then I have to input into that hour something that meets that person's importance that they've attached to it. Yeah. And I think what is happening now is, if that is an hour of talking, that's the most important thing. And I think you get a natural, as soon as the person comes through the door, you sort of know where you're going to hit it. And I think it's a privilege to be able to be in that position to help people's mental health as much as their physical. So yeah, I think it's...
Because I guess what I want to come on to is the talking about how you're feeling, which is kind of broadly what this thing is about. And there's generally a stereotype around men not talking about their feelings. And I'm probably thinking about that a lot more, having spent quite a few years talking about my feelings where I wouldn't have normally done so. And particularly when we do that, and I get a lot out of that.
I think quite often that if there's a discussion or people need help, I think it's more around that. What I find with guys is that quite often the sort of deep and meaningful bit will be, there'll be a subcontext of either a joke or some sexual reference or something to almost go,
to take the edge off it.
Sorry,
to take the edge off it.
I want to tell you about this because this is really important, and I'd really treasure your advice on this. Oh, and by the way, she's got big boobs, but that isn't important. And it's that bit around almost not communicating in a way that is like letting go. Yeah. So I think there is a difference. I think guys just have that, and I think that's that whole stereotype of being, I don't know, seen as somehow. I still think it's either been like, you're less manly or you're less whatever. I still think that exists.
You think so?
Yeah.
There's a big thing now, it has been for a while, but even now it feels more topical and poignant than ever, is that guys don't talk and they need to talk and people need to talk. And I'm kind of broadly okay with that. So there's a couple of things. I don't think it's always good to talk.
No.
I just don't.
Amen. Amen.
But when you do... And this is I haven't really seen anyone talking about this, is the person you're talking to. Because that person, we talk to people that are certified to, or have been trained in that, in that area. But everyone else isn't. You're not trained officially to help someone like me talk to you about how I'm feeling or why I did or didn't want to turn up to that session. Not everyone's equipped with it, and that's okay as well. And some people have it thrust upon them. They might be down the pub thinking they're going to chat about booze and football, and then the next minute they're talking about something more deep. And that person might not want to listen to it. Two, wants to but just feels massively uncomfortable. They don't because it's unusual and out of place. Three, don't know what to do with it, and they've got it. Feel they have to. Do I fix this? Do I get involved? Do I stand back? I don't want to upset this person. They're obviously at a heightened point of their emotions, and I don't want to put my fingers in my ears and go la 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 la. But I think we also put quite a bit of emphasis on other people too. take that and listen and deal with it.
But
I think that's a big ask for anybody. You don't go. You don't tee anyone up going, "I'm about to talk to you about my deepest and darkest. Are you ready?"
But you intrinsically know, based on trust and other factors, who you can tell what. We had a discussion the other day about a couple of mutual friends and saying, and the first time we probably had this discussion, that we felt that they had a depth that wasn't necessarily obvious. And I think, in retrospect, if I wanted to share, my innermost secrets, I would trust both of those people. But the persona they give doesn't do that, and it's only through time. The other interesting thing I thought, and you said this off air, listen to me, in the green room. So, no, you said this to me recently. Our first podcast was the first time we had sat down facing each other and had a conversation.
Absolutely.
Ever.
And this is the sixth time.
This is the sixth time. But that's quite, I don't know. We obviously had conversations.
I didn't realise it until after we'd done it.
No. And so we have shared stuff, but a lot of it has been in a very cold garage, standing up with my dodgy rave music in the background.
With me waving my arms around.
Yeah.
As a warm-up.
So I think that's interesting in terms of, obviously
I think it's a big ask, isn't it, to, even though you think someone's deep, doesn't mean they want to hear what you've got to say.
True.
And I think it's, so I think it's a real, I don't know how I haven't got any answers to how you approach that. It's one thing to understand what you're feeling, and it's another thing to vocalize that, and then it's another thing again to understand who's receiving that.
Yeah,
I think it's a really big ask, and I haven't really kind of found anything or anyone talking about it. Maybe I just have to dig a bit further. But
no, I think you're right.
It doesn't matter whether you've known, someone all your life or whether they're family, friends, or some people just aren't equipped, or they have too much of their own stuff. Their cup is full.
Yeah.
I haven't got room for your stuff. So then like everything else, there's every combination thereof.
And I can think of a friend, just as we're having this discussion, who I've known for decades, who probably knows 5% of what's happening in my life, but there's other people that know, 95%, and it's just, there wouldn't be anything for me to be gained in sharing with him, although I value his friendship and I think he's a great guy. It's just... it wouldn't be appropriate. Or more importantly, I think the bit you're saying now, and I think this is the key bit, the reaction that I get wouldn't aid me. So if he goes, okay, now I've heard that, I understand, I get you. Number one, I don't think he would. But number two, him saying that wouldn't make me go, thank God, now I've shared that and he understands.
Yeah.
Whereas it could be someone who I know far less. Maybe this is an example, first time we've sat down and had this discussion. And I feel that there would be either empathy and understanding, or maybe some words that would take me forward or make it easier to cope with certain situations. So I think you sort of choose. You can know pretty quickly. What's going to work. Just
reminded me of what we talked about in the last episode about setting your bar and about how you feel and what good looks like. You don't ever go into those conversations with a little note going, this is what I want to get out of it. 5 things I want to get out of this conversation. And, you never think about just keeping the friendship would be top of the... but I don't necessarily have, I guess from my experience, I think it's easy to go, it's whatever is okay. I mean, broadly it is. But I think, again, you can read so much. There's so many people talking about how you should do things. You just have to maybe work it out for yourself. It's not always going to go well. Even if you think that, a person who's going to have it, take what you're saying in the best way and be gentle with it, may not. And you might just have to find out the hard way. And it might be the best thing you ever did. It might be, the worst thing you ever did. Or it might just be something you don't ever do again. But I think that's all right. Some people like to tell 100 people. Some people like to tell one. Some people don't like to tell anyone. Or some people don't actually know, don't quite have it together to understand in the first place what they're, they might be halfway through working out what it is. So why give your workings to someone? That's even worse than going, this is how I feel. Rather than giving someone an itinerary of, here's 10 options.
This is how far I've got.
These are 10 things I could be feeling, and just...
I think the interesting thing we mentioned in the last one, and we definitely will touch this on the should, I did have a client come to me, and she'll know who she is from this, but she'll be fine with this. And someone had said, because of something that happened in her life, they said, well, they used a shouldn't, but shouldn't is a should.
Yeah, it is.
You shouldn't be doing this, and she chose to do it, and it was the wrong advice. But for me, it's that bit about what you've just said, which I think is key. It's good to talk, but it's not good to talk just for the sake of it, and not to the wrong person, and not just to somehow imagine that if you said something, then you're better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
The release, it's like, and without trying to go too deep on this one, with my dad having died recently, my view of my dad's death was that, number one, life is finite. We're all going to die at some stage. So if you were doing, and I don't want this to sound flippant, it's not, if you were to do the plan, the 5 things, if I'm going to live, what would be my 5 targets? And if the target was, to have, in effect, a happy life, to be able to achieve things in work or play that gave me pleasure. If you wanted to start a family, if you want to start a relationship, have all those boxes ticked. And then if the final bit was that, my death was not prolonged and painful, then my father met all those criteria. So I don't actually have any sadness at his death, because this is the thing, everything has to end. I'm sorry that he won't be in my life, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to speak to him, but he's met all those criteria. And so, but a lot of people are going to me, it'll hit you soon, and if you want to talk about it, I don't want to talk about it. I'm happy that he had a fantastic life. I've been reading his obituaries. I've had people ringing me up going, he was a great guy, had a great life, and I'm going, good. And I don't want to be flippant. It's not like I'm glad my dad's died, but I'm not sad he's died, because he was always going to die. And so I think it's that bit. I don't want to talk. I don't need, I don't need to say anything. So I think talking for its own sake can be, says us on a podcast.
I found something, it's still in the same ballpark, but 6 steps to mindfully deal with difficult emotions.
Okay.
I'm not going to try to, it feels like I'm trying to crowbar this in, but this is from the Gottman Institute, which I thought was interesting. It got me thinking about this and talking, and more to the point. I mean, there's, like we've said before, almost everything we talk about has another 10 tangents, doesn't it? But I don't want to cram it all in. But another listicle as well, which is okay. So the first one was turn towards your emotions with acceptance. Acceptance we've touched on briefly. That's a really big thing. So becoming aware of the emotion and identify where you see it in your body. That was a good one. The second one was identify and label the emotion. So to stay mindful, say to yourself, this is anger or this is anxiety, which is good to recognise. Most of this kind of self-exploration bit is identifying things, isn't it? We all have different definitions of things. So I guess that labelling is labelling how you want to label it, which I quite liked. Third one is accept your emotions. Don't deny the emotion, acknowledge and accept that it's there. Reminds me of the one you touched on the other day about how stress is actually quite important.
Yeah.
Although that's not it can be an emotion to a certain degree,
emotion.
But sadness is, it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be down, it's okay to be manic, it's okay, all other things, just understanding it, and I guess trying not to fall into the trap of thinking you shouldn't or you should. Back to that, feel those things. You're feeling it for a reason, you feel fear for a reason, you feel anger for a reason, all those things.
Just interrupting on that one, the interesting thing that I find, because alongside the yoga, I'm doing a lot of meditation, and I didn't go through a course, I went through a sort of an app of 30 days, so I had a little bit more understanding rather than just listening to a 10-minute. And one of those things around meditation was allowing, so if you are there meditating and you suddenly have a disturbance, like, it's just to allow that to come in and then allow that to go out, rather than going, shit, I can't meditate now because the cat's broken a vase or something. It's just that acceptance of that, and then just letting that flow through, rather than getting in anger or whatever. And I think that's what that is, isn't it? About recognizing the emotion rather than trying to fight it or let it disturb you.
4, realize the impermanence of your emotions, touching on the wabi-sabi. Even if the emotion feels overwhelming, remember that it will pass. It's a good one. 5, inquire and investigate. Ask yourself, what triggered me? Why do I feel this way? Don't know. You probably get into the overthink then, potentially. But I think we all do that. What the why? Why am I feeling like that? What's made me feel like that? Sometimes there's no rhyme or reason as to what it is. And the last one is let go of the need to control your emotions, which kind of almost sums up the whole of them, really. So be open to the outcome of your emotions and what unfolds. Getting back to the acceptance of it, accepting it, identifying, accepting it, and just riding it out. You've kind of talked about that, and I think I have often turned up and go, I feel like this, but it won't last. It can't last. Well, I hope it doesn't last. There's always that fear. This might be it for the rest of my life. But
everything's cyclical, isn't it? Everything. I think the interesting, when you just mentioned stress there, one of the things, which is one of my mantras, and again, this is probably mostly true, but I sort of make it true when I'm doing it by just sort of, what's the word? Sort of just cutting the sort of full scientific thing. But briefly, the body's reaction to mental and physical stress is pretty much the same. And if you think about it, the whole thing around, so if you're being chased by a bear or you're under mental stress because of whatever is causing you mental stress, you will have things like sweaty palms, you will have things like a higher heart rate, you will have your hair standing on end because of adrenaline being released and cortisol being released. So the same reaction, and this is, again, it's sort of almost oversimplification, but the body doesn't. This is an interesting thing. A nutritionist once said to me when I got a bit mouthy, and I was wrong and she was right. She once said to me, the body doesn't really know the difference massively between a sugar lump and honey, because I was saying, yeah, but one's refined and it's had all this done to it. And she went, but they are sugars. Okay, there is a bit of difference. And I went, well, honey's good for you. And she went, if you ate half a jar, you'd get a bit of zinc. But, and it's this sort of, going back to our clean food, dirty food. It's basically, honey is basically sugar, as is a sugar lump, as is a grape. And I think it's
the associations with those things. The judgment, all the baggage that come along with.
It's in your
what's
mind.
What's good, what's bad.
But your body's going, okay, it might be slightly different, but it's sugar. And I'll process it as a sugar. And it will benefit me or not as a sugar.
We talked about that very early on in terms of feeling melancholy or feeling low. And there's until you kind of go through all this stuff, there's the element of you try and rectify that. You're kind of brought up knowing that if you're feeling a bit low, you've got to do something to fix it. Let's go out and have a few beers and fix that,
Instead of accepting.
Why don't you do something you like doing? It's like, it's not always that easy, but it's always, rather than, it would have been weird, and I guess it feels less protective or caring about someone if you go, just sit over there and ride it out. This one's going to hurt. You know what I mean? You're feeling pain. Just go and sit in the corner and think about that. But actually it sounds very uncaring, but actually that is kind of what we have, I guess, isn't it? There's often things you just can't do. I can't go and play my drums or listen to music. Sometimes that won't do. And
no, because the pain is the overriding emotion.
But it's there for a reason, isn't it? So they're telling you something. Or
I think that acceptance. I think that's key. It was interesting you said. God, this is going to sound so pretentious. The other day when we were talking about Chaucer
and the Wife of Bath,
But I love. Firstly, I love the word melancholy.
Is that Chaucerian?
I think it's very well. Melancholy was around. They saw it as an active thing, like almost like a chemical in your body.
Well,
I think
the
melancholy was.
What, did they try and cure it? Did they or something with it?
I think it was like.
We'll
look it up very subtly in a minute before I have to do another.
Carry on. I might have a sound effect.
A little go. So but I think melancholy was seen as a thing that basically your body was filled with melancholy.
Right.
And I think that's why it's such a great word, that it is that idea that it's almost, something coursing through your veins.
Okay.
Whereas I think what happens in this day and age is we see it as something that's stuck in my brain. Whereas I think if I'm in a melancholy thing, it takes over my whole body.
Right.
It's getting your point. If you're in a melancholic mood and someone goes, sprinting makes you happy. Well, I ain't going to go sprinting because I'm in a melancholic mood. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It isn't that there's a quick fix. It's
Yeah, I've gone to football in a bad mood
yeah,
and been in a bad mood from the beginning to the end and come away actually even worse
yeah.
because it,
Isn't that simplistic, is it?
no, probably because I've been going, this is meant to be making me feel better and it's not, and it's making me even worse because it's not.
So have you done the search?
Yeah, but it's kind of come up with, just what it means, a feeling of pensive sadness, typically with no obvious cause. But I haven't got anything about.
I've got the
where
word
it's-
hubris coming in my mind, and I don't know whether I'm just being...
Um,
Can I have a quick Wikipedia?
yes.
So melancholia is a concept from ancient or pre-modern medicine as one of the 4 temperaments matching the 4 humours. In the 19th century, it could be physical as well as mental, and melancholic conditions were classified as such by their common cause rather than by their properties. It is the predecessor of the mental health diagnosis of clinical depression and still exists as a subtype for major depression known as melancholic depression.
Okay. Right.
So, but interesting, that line, it could be physical as well as mental.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
Right.
we've obviously not far off being doctors so far in what we've been able to
we
impart.
haven't put the disclaimer out, have
Yeah.
we? But I think the very first one in that list was become aware of the emotion and identify where you sense it in your body.
Mm.
So this is not
Yeah,
about
yeah.
your head.
No.
It can feel, it can manifest in physical fatigue,
Yeah.
can't it?
Well,
You
it can
just-
be heartache, can't it?
Yeah.
And you feel heartache in
Yeah,
other places.
yeah. What grinds your gears?
So,
Bit
because of the mindfulness I've been doing,
Nice link.
I have changed massively. Someone the other day said, "You're not judgmental," and I thought, shit, a year ago, no one would have said that. No one would have said that because it would have been too ironic. So I took that as a compliment. The mindfulness has changed. I'm way more calm. I'm way more less. So my gears get ground less.
Right.
And if I do, I'm able to dismiss the feeling. So,
Mhm.
God, I'm sounding
You were saying this is helping your running as well. Kind of, we're talking about that level of calm before a race and things. You were saying your whole demeanour has been a lot calmer. So,
yeah,
and
yeah.
you shout at me a lot less.
That was the
the
feedback.
drop and give me 20 isn't something you say anymore.
If you fancy doing something, do it. But I'm not going to push you.
Yeah, you're here. What do you want to do? Yeah. Help yourself. I'm going to have a coffee.
A passive PT. It's your hour.
Yeah, I'll see you later.
I'm not here to dictate.
Tipping points on. I'm off.
Yeah, more innuendos from Ben.
Sorry, I
So-
derailed you. You're
Well,
zen.
you said what they were. So, the top one has to be people that say assume instead of assume.
Assume.
Now you've listened to it, you'll hear it.
Right.
A lot of people say assume.
Okay, I really wasn't expecting that.
No, that's about it.
I thought it was going to be the state of the roads or,
No,
masks in
no, just
supermarkets.
big things like that.
Okay.
That's it.
We haven't talked
It's a
about
list
that.
of
Did
one.
I say podcast and you say podcast?
That's just regional
Is that 'cause
dialect.
is it though? I didn't think people in Bristol, that's people in Bath,
Bath.
say podcast. I wouldn't have said a true Bristolian would have. There's probably a name for that, isn't there? How you pronounce things?
But podcast is a southern cast, is northern, surely.
I don't know. I probably hear a mix down here, but
Okay, well, what's your list? My list is
as-
one.
my list of one is being late.
Oh, yeah, I got a list of two, actually.
In terms of, I never liked being late. I used to have a mate. So I used to. We fell out with him, but for years and years and years, was just late to every time we went out, just at school, Cubs, Scouts, the whole, going out to the pub as you get older. It was always like to the point like an hour late. So we even got to the point where we'd tell him that you needed to be there an hour earlier than he should have been, and he was still late. To the point that, you ring, we're going now. Where are you? I'm just about to get in the shower.
Yeah.
No, totally unacceptable.
My attitude, say, towards risk, which will come out in future podcasts when we talk about
Risk.
crashing on a bike at the Le Mans track and things like that. My attitude to risk is less now, but in my past life, I've sought to put myself in risky situations, and quite often with time, because I used to be a bid writer, quite often I'd be writing the bid 5 minutes before it had to be sent, and I did the same socially as well. It would be, right, I can get to this place in 14 minutes, but if the traffic lights are all on red, I'll be late. But it's like, no, I'll be fine. And a really close friend said to me, similar to what you'd said about a couple of years ago, in terms of it's just that lack of respect. And when they put it like that, if someone is sitting waiting for you for 3, 5, 7 minutes and they can't do anything else, you've taken that time away from them because of your inefficiency. And I've really tried after that. I felt guilty today because I gave you a time when I was going to be here.
I didn't want to bring it up.
No. And then they put the races back an hour.
Right.
Just because they'd messed up. They'd missed half the competitors off, so they had to double the races, and then we couldn't, because obviously...
They have no idea the damage it's caused.
No. But I did feel guilty, but I actually didn't want to give an excuse and say, I'm late because of this, this and this. But I take your point, it's when people are late just because they can't be asked.
Yeah. We had hydration to talk about. Trying to cram it all in.
Where are we with time?
No idea. As per usual.
I was going to tell you a story. Should we do that?
Is it about drinking water?
No, it's very similar. So it's totally linked to hydration.
Let's do it. Okay, so will this link, will your story link mindfulness and
water? I'll do one little link for mindfulness, and I'm going to get this word wrong. So again, I'll apologise for this at the next podcast. So one of the things that I'm finding on mindfulness and doing meditation is when they first go through all the different elements of it, there's an element of, forgive me, this is wrong, but it's something like your base something. So basically it's grabbing a little something that almost grounds you. I'm explaining this poorly, but you'll get it when it gets to it. Well, so it can be so that when you're getting into a meditative state, there will be something that you can focus on. That's what it is. And so sometimes one of the things that I find really interesting in meditating is it might be your hands are resting on your palms are resting on your thighs, and it's just that actual concentration on what it feels like on the palms of your hands. You don't actually think of that. You just go through your life. You don't think, how do my toes feel at this minute? So it just focuses your mind on that. Yeah. And one of the things that a lot of people focus on is breathing, which is the obvious one to sort of calm yourself down. And the one specific thing, again, this isn't, plenty of people use this, so it isn't just me coming up with something clever, is that when you breathe, again, a bit like the 52 weeks, we're told we breathe in and we breathe out. So, but there's a bit in between. So when you breathe in and breathe out,
there's a bit where you're doing
there's
neither.
a bit where nothing happens, and that's where I'm grounded, that's where I'm based, and that's where I can focus when I'm meditating.
Oh, yeah.
You're doing it, everyone's doing it
I'm
now.
doing it as you're saying it.
And it just stops.
It's holding your breath.
It feels like it's holding your breath, but you're not, it isn't, it's almost you think your breath goes in, out, in, out. It doesn't, it goes, there's a stop between the two.
Yeah.
It's almost like a total sense of calm, nothing happens. And then
do you worry that you'll forget? You'll be so lost you'll forget to do it and just collapse.
And die.
Yeah.
But that little spot for me, if I am...
That's quite good. I might try it, because I do like the breathing ones.
Yeah. But that is even more focused. So if I'm in a position where I'm thinking, right, I'm about to explode, I'm about to do that. So it isn't taking a deep breath, it's taking a normal breath and capturing that tiny bit between the two. Anyway.
I like it.
So no, the story had no relation to anything. The story was purely that I think we've been a bit anecdote light, and I was just going to tell you an absolutely random story of my youth. So I alluded to Le Mans. So my stag night was in Le Mans. I'm not a fan of motor racing.
Why was it there? Why did you go to Le Mans?
Because the people organising my stag night told me that's where I was going.
But there's no...
I hate motor racing.
I mean, I guess there's other things there, right, rather than a racetrack, but I don't really know. Normally if you go in there to, unless you live there, but you go in there because of the racetrack. But
yeah, I mean, it's a bit of an event, so when you get there, there's a big campsite. So Le Mans itself is...
So was Le Mans on at the time?
Oh yeah, we went for the race. Yeah, we went to a small French town for a week. Yeah, we hang out at the Café Tabac.
Because I know the fucking story. So you've told it me. I don't even know why I'm acting like I've never heard it before.
No, we went for the motor
need a
racing.
coffee.
It was fortunate. It wasn't planned. It just happened to be on the week we went. We'd gone for a tour of provincial French towns, Le Mans, Tours, and Calais. Those were the triumvirate of French towns that we were going to visit.
You're taking the piss now, aren't you?
Yeah. So we're at Le Mans, and I say my best friend. At the time, it's a bit like your sort of late friend.
He's not dead.
Oh, no. No, you're being late friend.
Oh, sorry, right. We might be. I haven't heard from
your
him.
Late friend,
he might well be.
Yeah.
And he certainly won't be listening.
I hope he isn't.
No, I hope he isn't.
Yeah. Because despite being late, you don't wish ill on him, do you?
He'd be late to his own funeral, I'll tell you that.
So, I was a motorbike dispatch rider. And when I'd got the job, I didn't have a motorbike. And I got the job and I started the following day. So that was a tough call. So I bought a motorbike, did the dispatch riding, then went on to another job selling burgers, I think. So I didn't need the motorbike. And my friend decided to go around Europe. Said, can I have your bike? So I said, fine. So he went around Europe on my bike and then met us at Le Mans, which was I think that's quite romantic. He's toured Europe. We haven't seen each other for months. We meet up at Le Mans. Big hug.
Could then.
Eh?
You could then.
You could then, yeah. We probably talked about deep and meaningful things.
Oh, right.
Yeah. And he said to me, well, this is what I heard. I heard, do you fancy nipping down to the campsite shop to get a few beers? That's what I heard.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah. What he actually said, and I don't know why there was such confusion, he said, do you fancy going round the Le Mans circuit on the back of your bike?
It's pretty similar, isn't it?
Somewhere it got lost in translation, perhaps. Being in Europe for 3 months, he had a sort of European twang. It's like Spanish lilt that put me off.
Yeah.
So either way, I got on the back of the bike.
You had a couple of beers at this point, or
Sorry?
not? Have you had any?
I'd literally just met him. I didn't know whether we just met on the campsite. I don't know if he'd been drinking all day, whether he'd driven in. Yeah, I guess.
Okay, just trying to paint the picture.
I think I had. So anyway, got on the back of the bike, thinking this looks quite a major road to go to the campsite shop, because basically the Le Mans track is the roads.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
through the forest and stuff.
So got on the back of the bike, thought also if we're going to the campsite shop, we don't need to be going at 50/60/70 miles an hour.
You realise this very quickly.
Yeah. And I knew either the campsite shop was due to close,
and
I thought, typical French, fucking closing at 4 p.m. Stereotypical.
Yeah.
But I thought, obviously, there's a reason for the rush. And it was just that he wanted to show off. So we went round the Le Mans track.
What kind of bike did he have? I mean,
So this is a Honda CX500. And basically, the reason he'd had it, it doesn't have a chain. It's shaft driven.
Oh.
It's a bit of a lump of a bike. It's not particularly sporty.
Okay.
It's a lot of dispatch riders had them because they didn't break down.
Mm-hmm.
So took a corner, totally lost it, to the extent that as we both fell off, we were talking to each other as we slid along the surface of the road. And it literally, I only had shorts on, by the way, and no crash helmet.
So you were talking and it happened so fast, you were still mid-conversation.
We were sliding so far because it was on gravel.
You weren't going, mate, you've just dropped, this isn't going to end well.
Yeah.
Or were you just chatting about
Is this the way to the shop? You didn't mention we had to get off and walk the last bit.
Yeah.
And so, literally, we're just sliding across and absolutely just ate away at my legs, just ripped into them, absolutely just full of stones. And I think it was just an interesting story in terms of, it might not have been an interesting story, but I thought it was an interesting story in terms of...
hold on, what did you, just before... you're halfway across, you're sliding across the road at this point.
Yeah, so
did you hit anything?
We just go basically into the grass verge, into a little ditch, and I'm there going, you all right? Yeah, you all right?
And the bike's gone, right?
The bike's gone.
Right.
So that carried on. It got pretty badly smashed up. And so, that was...
Did you do that am I dead thing or not?
it was that bit around, I've had a few bike accidents, but you are actually thinking, the next couple of seconds is going to, you've got enough time to decide the next. I suppose that's the mindfulness bit. You are actually thinking.
You were present.
Yeah. So I tried to find that little bit of breath to make the crash seem less.
Yeah.
But that was like hour one of my stag night. And so that was a bad way to start. That was a bad way to start. But it was sore.
Do you have any scars?
Not really. It was more just everything had just sort of, it wasn't like cuts. It was just everything had been ripped by the gravel. So it's just like, just the whole week. Then we were living in a tent, just living on beer. It
discomfort.
Yeah. And of course, this is the typical lads thing. You're all right. You don't need any medical attention.
No, of course you don't.
Because
it's drinking time, isn't it?
Yeah. And they were literally taking stones out with tweezers, but you don't need a doctor sort of thing.
No.
So, that was that. I just thought we'd have a little anecdote. Not as good as the McDonald's one, I don't think.
No, the Kellogg one.
The Kellogg one.
That's right. It's okay. They don't have to be all there. It was good. I liked it. I heard it before. I enjoyed it the second time.
There is a part two as well. That the same guy that I was with stole a wheel from the Jaguar team. Did I tell you that?
No.
He stole a wheel from one of the cars. We broke into it and he stole it and brought it back with us. And of course, when we came through customs, because we picked up some other people on the way back, so they were in the back of the van that we went in. So I had a smashed up bike, a racing wheel,
explain this
two drunk guys. So he got held in customs for quite a while. But yeah, he made it into a coffee table. He put
that's quite nice, actually.
A circle of glass on top. So fair play.
You can listen and or subscribe to us on the following apps. Anchor, Apple. You can leave us a review on Apple. You're an Apple man, aren't you? Oh, yeah, you are, aren't you? Have you left yourself a review on Apple Podcasts? We're on Breaker, Deezer, Google Podcasts, Overcast, Podcast, Radio Public, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you can't find us on your preferred app, then just use the RSS link that's at the top of our show notes. That's it for this episode. Well done getting for this far, and thanks for listening. All links are in our show notes. And do give us a follow on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, under the username @I'mFinecast. If you prefer a longer copy, you can send us an email to imfinecast@gmail.com. Coming up in the next episode, we've got the second part of Be Careful What You Put in Your Mouth, where we're going to talk about